Some new varieties that are I selected from seed a number of years ago that are starting to fruit for the first time. It's kind of like my next generation of new varieties that I'm looking at. This may or may not. They haven't even fruited yet. So if you've got small trees like this and you have time to kind of baby them, and you see prune panicles where there's nothing on them, and you can break them off, get them off. Just remember, you know, you see these fertilizer bags, plant food. No. Plant food is like vitamins. All your fertilizer is like vitamins. Your food, sunlight.
What's good spacing for a homegrown yard?
Well, I think these are like 18 feet apart, something like that. And you can even grow them closer to that if you keep them pruned.
Right.
Don't multi-graft.
Don't multi-graft.
Don't multi-graft.
Hello everybody, welcome. This is going to be a great video today. I actually got to spend a good amount of time with Gary Zill and from Zill's High Performance Plants, and we are going to have him today talking about some very interesting things about planting mango trees and how to help them avoid getting disease. And this property is absolutely amazing. It sets the perfect example of how things should be done. And we're going to get into a lot of these ideas today about growing mango trees and how to stop disease from spreading. This is one you definitely want to watch. I mean, this place has been around for a long time, and there's so much great information in this video. This might be one of the best videos I've ever did for information about growing mangoes, especially high density mangoes. And Gary Zill, one of the things he does and wants to do is he wants to keep mango trees small. So he's creating dwarf rootstocks so we can have traditionally big growing trees on small rootstocks so they won't get that big. This is a video you want to watch and take notes. All right. So we're going to get started with this. This is Gary Zill from Zill's High Performance Plants, and we're going to put his link below on his Facebook page that are on the website. And here we go.
Now this over here is our collection of varieties on the property that we get fruit and budwood from.
All right, here I am with Gary Zill, and this is the area you were saying what, Gary?
Well, these are all a collection of varieties that we propagate. Some recently acquired a few years ago, and they're spaced out pretty good. We're going to keep them pruned back, not let them get ahead of us. And there's pretty much every variety that we normally want to produce in here to get budwood from and fruit from, and some new varieties that we'll be mentioning later. I think we can take a look at some of the fruit. They're not necessarily all fruit that I've selected. There's some other stuff that we've gotten. There's a really interesting selection from USDA. Fairchild, I'll have to check my records on that. And I've also got hidden off one area here some new varieties that are I selected from seed a number of years ago that are starting to fruit for the first time. It's kind of like my next generation of new varieties that I'm looking at. This may or may not. They haven't even fruited yet. So,
so are these trees just basically mostly for budwood?
Yeah, the whole idea was mostly for budwood, but we've gone ahead and I like to make sure and watch them fruit to make absolutely certain that the IDs are right before we even get budwood, because that can be a real expensive mistake.
So these aren't new varieties. These are just
this is Nem.my. Some of these are new varieties to us. This is an interesting. I don't recognize this one, so I'm going to have to look for the label. This is XOAITUOG. It's a Vietnamese variety. I believe it's supposedly a very, very good one for eating green. I think this is the same thing here. And this is the first year I've seen fruit on them. Yeah, it's the same variety. And we'll be propagating these later on. We'd like to get a sample of them and make sure they are.
But you've tasted these already?
No.
So what makes you like try these if you haven't tasted them? How do you know there's something you want to try?
He was telling me these are varieties from Vietnam that are that are eating green over there.
Okay.
And anyway,
are you finding disease resistant wise and everything else, the ones you eat green, is there advantage to those, or?
Well, the advantage is that in a lot of places where there's a lot of fruit fly pressure, I assume, they eat a lot of mangoes green instead of letting them get ripe. I know it's the case in Costa Rica. A lot of the mangoes, if maybe more people eat mangoes green there than ripe because there's so many fruit flies that they can have is a problem. Now, I believe this one here is Cat Saigon.
Cat Saigon, okay.
Cat Saigon, I believe, I have to check my notes. I got so many of them which we keep track of nowadays, but I believe this is a selection either from USD or DA or from Fairchild. It's a large Southeast Asian flavored mango that's big and got color and very good quality. We're going to be propagating some of these this year. Oh, I don't know. It just happens that I'll be walking by here and this is what I'm seeing. I think this looks like a, because of its dense foliage and compact growth. Let's see what this says. Oh, this is Phoenix.
It's a Phoenix.
Phoenix, yeah. I'm anxious to get some more fruit on this. Although, if you can see, all of the early bloom.
But you already
by the way,
Phoenix.
while we're here, I would like to show something I've been talking about for a long time, and that is if you got small trees like this, and you have time to kind of baby them, and you see prune panicles where there's nothing on them, and you can break them off, get them off. All of these, dead stems like this can be a host for anthracnose fungus. It grows in it. And if you clean it up off your tree, like this little guy here, I don't think it's going to bloom anymore. But if you get this stuff off by hand, now obviously a big grove, you're not going to do this. With some of the bigger groves, what they do is go through and just hedge them and clip everything off. But if you've got a small tree like this, get this stuff off.
Are you throwing it on the floor? If they're going to get disease on the tree, wouldn't they?
Well, yeah, you know, in some of the places where there's big groves and they have to be extremely careful, they want to get everything out of there. But it's mainly, if you look at sometimes on a mango that has got a spot of anthracnose or even on a stem up above it, you'll see where as it rains, it moves through the rain. The spores move in the rain and in the water much more than they do. One on the ground, not nearly as likely to infect a fruit up here.
Gotcha.
As when you got it growing in a piece of dead wood up here and you got fruit down below.
What about leaves like this? What's this going on here?
It could be a number of things. It could be a fertilizer burn. It could be a shortage of fertilizer, potassium. I don't really try to get everything figured out. It looks like it could be a slight bit of a shortage of magnesium. Magnesium is usually one of
it could be several things. Okay.
Yeah, could be several things, but
you want to break these off is what he's saying.
Yeah, it's interesting. This particular tree, for some reason, usually they break off pretty easily. This is a little bit tougher to get off. Now, it looks like there's a possibility that this guy will, yeah, it's going to flower again. But it's be better, these flowers will stay cleaner and much better off, and the fruit, if this is all off the tree. So, you know, if you're a homeowner, got small trees in your yard, it's a good idea to take the time to get those off the tree. Like over here, I mean, this is a mess. Get this stuff off, doesn't take long, and I will guarantee you that this is absolutely as effective as spraying the tree 2 or 3 times just to get this stuff out of here. And something to do in your pastime if you got, you know, a hobbyist and want to do something in your yard, go out and clean up your tree a little bit. And this apparently appears like it is going to be, it's got new growth coming out.
Let me ask you this question. There are people out there that they don't want to spray anything on their trees. Do you think that's wise or not wise?
A lot depends on the variety and where you are. we're a pretty good location here for two reasons. One, you see how spaced out everything is? They're not crowding each other. It's gonna rain. Usually, unfortunately, in Florida, it rains. Comes in the afternoon. The trees stay wet all night. Your fungus spores germinate like a seed. They're tiny, microscopic seeds. They actually germinate and penetrate the leaves and the skin of the fruit, and it takes them a while. And if you're closer you are to the ocean, or you get a little breeze, and especially, and this is why it's important to have them spread apart, they tend to dry out quicker. And if the spores don't have time to germinate before they dry up, it'll kill them. And so the better air circulation, and of course, so the better air circulation, the cleaner, more likely your trees are going to are going to be dry. Are going to dry up in a hurry and probably have less of a problem of fungus. This is why closer to the ocean, you get these ocean breezes in Florida, and they don't arrive out in Okeechobee.
So if you are going to not spray, definitely better to not do ultra density where trees are planted very close.
No, you can't do high density. What you want to do is constantly, every year, like a tree like this size, ideally, I would come in here with a pair of clippers after the fruit are off and take off the last flush of growth, shape up the tree, do it as quick as you can after you get the fruit off. Any grower will do the same thing, only they'll come in here with a hedge and just, because they can't do this by hand. But a homeowner, if you can get all this dead stuff off, everything that's brown and dead, because your fungus is growing this stuff. They don't have to have live
you can get
grow feed on.
You can pretty much, it's possible without spraying to get good fruit for a home grower. Is yes or no?
Yeah. You may not get as heavy a crop, depending on the variety, depending on the season. You're at the mercy of the weather. This year, most of our crop, because of the way the weather was last winter, so cold and wet during December and January, which is usually when they come out with a heavy bloom, all of that bloom got wiped out. And I don't think anybody had any luck spraying either. It was just too bad. But what we're seeing now is a lot of late bloom. Here it is, we're in almost the end of March, and we got flowers coming out, a second flush of growth. So this is good. Our season's going to be a little bit later this year, because if these first bloom had set, they're going to be blooming again this time of year. So, but again, that's one of the things I was going to say. And you can see pruning is a good idea. And there was something else I was going to say, and I forgot.
When you're pruning that also, do you want to prune out the middle a little when you prune these?
I don't like to.
You don't like to prune the middle?
I don't like to. Well, there are sick people say, oh, you got to prune out the middle, open it up, get some sunlight in there. I think that if you're going to do that, you're going to have to prune back pretty severely in the middle, because you cut out in the middle and everything that comes out is going to go straight up. And it won't be long. If you do that, come back the next, have to wait another year and prune it some more and prune it some more. I like pruning on the outside edge. Prune on the outside edge. Yeah, that was what I was going to say. Just remember, you see these fertilizer bags, plant food. No. Plant food is like vitamins. All your fertilizer is like vitamins. Your food is sunlight. That's what they feed on. They feed on sunlight. And they need a lot to get good production. And that's kind of, to me, that's almost miraculous.
What's good spacing for a homegrown yard?
Well, I think these are like 18 feet apart, something like that. And you can even grow them closer to that if you keep them pruned. I advise starting to prune it the year after you plant the tree. Shape it up, keep it pruned back.
Well, how much closer to that do you think you can get away with?
A lot depends on the variety. If they're, this little Namdok my tree, for some reason, is growing really nicely and compact. They don't all grow this way. I'm not sure why. We may have selected this when we planted it out as being a little bit compact. Heck, it's 8 feet across. You plant them 10 feet apart and keep them this small, they can have a couple feet in between. But if you're going to let your trees get away from you, or you want a big shade tree, you may need to plant them 25 feet apart. So it all depends on your purpose, how much room you've got, how many trees you want to plant in your yard. And, you know, at some point, we will have very limited supply varieties of any kind that stay very dwarf, but that's going to be a number of years.
Regardless of what anyone does, whatever they decide, they should keep some feet between the other trees from not touching. Is that a key?
Yeah, it's not good to have them so close together that the branches are interfering with each other, because they're just not going to get the air circulation. They're not going to get the sunlight. Once they're growing into each other, they're shading each other, and from there and below, you may get a fruit to set or not, but it's not going to get much sunlight. And if the fruit develop where they're in the shade, they're more likely to have some internal breakdown, because the calcium, they're not getting a lot of evaporation from the fruit's just not in the sun, not transpiring nearly as much water. Calcium moves in. That has an awful lot to do with the quality of the fruit.
So let's say there's no trees around here except this one, and you put another one here, and the only part they're touching is here, but you'll get mangoes on 3 sides of this tree and 3 sides of this tree, just not in the middle.
It'd be like a hedge.
Yeah. So is that a good idea, or not something you'd recommend to get more mangoes? Or more varieties, at least? Or does that spread disease more if they're touched?
It's not so much spreading diseases. Diseases can move in the wind.
Okay.
The water splashing. It's more shade. It's just more sunlight. And, if you can keep them separated, I would. I can't give you an exact number because a lot depends on the tree itself. But I will say this, that keeping your pruning on time, and on time I mean when the fruit are off. As soon as you get the fruit off, prune it. That's when, if you want to fertilize them at all with any nitrogen, that's when you fertilize them to get some growth on them. Once they've come out with one flush of growth, that's really all the growth you want. You want new fresh leaves. But new fresh leaves right in the late summer, August at the latest, September, because those leaves have got to get fully mature, how should I say, fully mature, ready to flower, because if they're young leaves, they're not going to bloom. They're not going to bloom. I remember one year I had a Julie tree that I couldn't get any good budwood off of it. It was just constantly flowering, and finally I said, heck with it. I'm going to keep this thing from blooming at all. So around December, I just took everything off of it. Every leaf, everything. It came out with new growth, but by the time, winter, even during the winter, the new growth was so young, it never flowered that year. So you got to have, fully mature.
So what would be, if I want 2 varieties in a small space, would it be better to have a tree close where they're touching on one side, or to multi-graft a tree to 2 varieties?
Don't multi-graft.
Don't multi-graft.
Don't multi-graft. If you've got to, plant them 8 inches apart. Plant them up close, let them crowd each other, but don't multi-graft. I've tried that, and it's extremely, extremely inefficient for 2 reasons. The whole reason. You put 2 grafts on a tree, and they're invariably one's going to grow faster than the other. And if you want the slower growing one to grow, you're going to be constantly pruning your more vigorous one to where it won't fruit.
Well, what if you plant 2 that have a similar growth pattern?
It's hard to find that. Even then, you graft one, put a graft, say I've cut a branch off of here, put a graft here, over on the other side, cut a branch off, put a graft on it. They start to come out, cut it back. Maybe one might take 2 or 3 months before the buds start to break even. The other one pops out in a hurry. You're already at an imbalance. So you can do it, I just know you're going to find it to be a lot more trouble. It's not just because I sell trees. I mean, believe me, I've tried double grafting them. I've tried to sell double grafted trees. I can't grow them.
Is there any other disadvantage to it, or that's the major one?
Well, they're going to be crowding each other, and any one time you prune one to try to get the other one to grow, which is what you're liable to do sooner or later. Every mango's got a little bit different way to grow.
So if you want two varieties, it's better to plant another one close, let the middle touch, and get two on the outside.
You got to have two varieties, and you got a little patio where you got. Yeah, you can still. You're better off not to try to graft two trees.
Yeah. And what was the reason you said about not cutting out the middle? And some people prefer it, but you don't. What was that reasoning?
Okay. Let's pick a big tree. Let's pick a big tree, like this guy over here. Okay. This tree started branching out too high. It got kind of away from us, okay? So you say, okay, let's take something out of the top. All right, where do you want to cut it? Okay? And what's your reason? What's your reason for doing it? If you want to get your fruit down low, it's already should have been pruned back a long time ago, and the first branches should be coming out down here. Okay, you're stuck with this. What should have been done was the tree to be pruned back here and here and keep this taller stuff going up. But now if you're at the point where, okay, we got to do something. Where are you going to cut it back? I've faced this problem a lot. Okay, you take it back here and here, here. Okay, these three, they're growing more upright, or even this. All right, you wait a year. Okay, what's going to happen is it's going to come out with new growth, and it's going to be as vigorous as this thing is. You're going to have 2 feet long branches here at least. They won't fruit. They're going to be growing vigorous and have young new growth on them, more than likely. You might. Okay, what do you got to do? You can let it grow, and 3 or 4 years later, you're going to be right back where you were, no matter what, because they want to grow up. They're going to be shaded from all the way around. Okay, so you say, well, we're going to cut it back down to here. Okay, cut it back down to here. Hope it doesn't split in a hurricane, because all of these crotches won't be as well fastened. You still got growth on the outside. Maybe the stuff on the inside will fill out, and you're going to be right back where you were.
But isn't the idea of cutting these out so you have more airflow in the middle, so it's less disease?
Yeah, you can get more sunlight in the middle. There's arguments to that. It's just that anytime you start doing that, you're going to have to constantly be cutting back the center. You're going to have to be, you cut these back. Maybe you cut them back right at the branching here, that you won't get any new shoots going straight up. You'll have this open canopy on the outside. But again, what are you doing on the outside? The outside is where you get most of your production to begin with. You can't spray up at the top. It's hard to spray at the top. You can't reach them up at the top. So, yeah, you can cut. So, sounds like I'm talking backwards here. If you've let them get that tall, you want to cut them back all the way around. If you want to prune the tops back, take out the middle, let the sides grow. Next year or the following year, you're going to have to start cutting the sides back. And if you do take the top and the center out like that, which is a lot of people say to do, just remember, go back the next year and prune those where it's starting to come back again, and keep pruning it, because if you don't, in 2 years, it's going to be right back where it was.
Okay. But then you just go cut it in 2 years, cut it out.
Well, I would say cut it out, and then the next year trim it, and try to get back to make that center more bushy.
And so the way you do it, by doing this outer edge, by cutting the outside, give me an example where you would cut this one.
I would take about 18 inches off it all the way around.
All the way around, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Maybe, think about it. Maybe if you got one smaller branch that's going straight up, or two, thin them out. But you're not really gonna, the whole idea is not to really, in my opinion, open it up that much in the middle, because it's gonna fill right back in. still more into cutting the tops out.
So regardless of if you don't do the middle, you would still cut the top and also cut about 18 inches off the sides every year.
I would cut them back every year, yeah.
And what's the, on a tree in general, 1/3 is the rule? Or 1/4? How far do you cut back the tree every year without harming next year's crop?
Harming next year's crop is more with how,
when you do it.
Yeah, doing as early as you can, and also, you know, how much growth that tree is going to put out, whether it's going to be put out 1 or 2 or 3 flushes of growth, and what that last flush of growth is going to look like. If it's going to be real tender, it's not going to bloom.
But size-wise, I mean, do you cut back 1/3 of the tree and no more than 1/3, or it doesn't matter how much you cut it back?
Oh, it makes a big difference.
So what's the rule? Like, what's the most you should cut a tree back every year? That's good, but not damage, not too much.
Probably 1/3 is a good rule, because you start taking too much. See, all you got to remember is the tree's got roots that are bringing in nitrogen and everything else, water, everything else that the tree needs to put new growth on. You take too much off the top, it's got no place to spread it all out as much, to go into all the foliage. It's going to go into new growth. The roots are also producing growth regulators that stimulate the root growth. So you got to be careful. You don't want to take too much off the top, because the roots are just going to be pushing it to grow back. And also, you got to also not go too severely with pruning them back, because you also have to have the foliage there to feed the roots. Yeah. So
sure.
I don't know if it probably sounds kind of confusing, because the pruning of the center is out. There's a lot of people saying that to do that. They have a point. I'm not going to say that it's that terribly wrong. I just don't like to have to do it. I think you're better off to just keep the trees down to size.
Sure. And if you do cut out a significant amount of the canopy, is it important never to paint the bark so you don't get sunburn, or is that another step?
Use a white latex paint, latex, that won't burn the bark. If it's horizontally growing, if it's horizontal and the sunlight's going to come hit it, especially in the middle of the day, yeah, paint it. Especially if it's a big old tree that you've got to really severely do some work on. Oh yeah, I've had that happen.
White latex, okay.
Yeah, and you know, especially after hurricane.
Yeah,
a lot of big limbs are broken, and of course, you know, there's dwarf trees like this. I believe this. What the heck is this? Let's check the label. It looks like a Julie. Yeah, what is this? Yeah, here's a Julie.
There you go.
Again, you got a lot of dead stems. Get them off. This is always a good idea. It takes time, but it's really, if you can. I mean, obviously you can't do this with a tree that's 30 feet in the air, or if you got 100 trees in a grove, you're not going to take the time to do this. But if you got a homeowner and you got 2 or 3 trees, you can see that I can display this because we haven't taken the time to do this and probably won't. But I know it's a good idea, especially when you're concerned about anthracnosis. You can see this little Julie tree, it fruited last year. You can see where the blooms were.
Yeah.
Fruited against this tree, and again this year, even further down on the stems. See here, here's the terminal, here's a branch coming out. See the flowers coming out here?
How old do you think this tree is?
It's probably been in the ground about 3 years. It's the same age as the tree right next to it. They're all planted the same day or two.
Wow.
And some other, so it's really compact. This is actually, how should I say, not the ideal way. You've got, this tree's actually getting smaller instead of bigger, you know? And if it does this again next year, it's going to be really stressed. So you may keep getting a crop of fruit, you may not. It'd be great to have almost have it in a 50-gallon, 25-gallon container. But at some point it's going to have to quit flowering, or it's going to just keep getting smaller and smaller and really get stressed out.
Sure.
This is one of the problems with the Julie mango. My suggestion is when you get the fruit off of it, you might want to just take a bunch of foliage and trim it back even more. It sounds crazy, but try to get it to come out with some new growth so that maybe it won't flower so much next year. I don't know. I don't know all the answers. Mangoes are complicated trees. This is diamond.
Diamond.
Yeah. Now, I don't know for sure, but I'm quite sure that's on a dwarf and rootstock. Over here, that isn't typical, I don't think. So I've got it grafted on 2 or 3 trees and it didn't grow like that. I think I got some over here. Yeah, this is stuff that it won't be available for a long time. But these are some stuff on some interesting rootstocks that normally.
So when you say a long time, how many years are you talking about?
2.
Okay. All right, everybody. There it was. That was Gary Zill at Zill's High Performance Plants. And I am telling you, the information will save you so much time that he shared here today with your fruit trees and how you keep them distance apart, and also how you take care of them to make sure you're going to get the best production, the less disease. It's just wonderful video, and I'm glad you got to see it. I'm glad I got to speak to Gary and spend time with him, and there's so much more information I've learned, and I'll be sharing that in future videos. Until then, everybody, thank you for watching. And if you want to taste of many of these amazing mangoes, depending when you're watching this, the Florida Mango Festival is happening June 29th, 2025. It's going to be happening in West Palm Beach. I'll put the link below to that as well. It's going to be amazing. And if you're watching this after that, well, I'm sure there's a future one coming up. Just go to the website below for that information as well. Until then, everybody, thank you for watching. Put your comments and questions below. If you have a garden and you're growing mango trees or any type of fruit trees and you'd like me to come out and feature you on the channel, let me know. My email's below. Until then, everybody, have a great day and keep growing.